Bhagavana ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamstra. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasani Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Today we're studying in the 7th chapter, verse number 28. And we'll be concluding chapter 7 today. So this chapter entitled Knowledge of the Absolute Truth. So Krishna has been explaining knowledge about Him, how we can see Him everywhere, and how when we understand the reality of Krishna's presence everywhere, one naturally surrenders to Krishna. Surrenders in loving service. But then Krishna began to speak about those who do not surrender, maybe those who surrender for different purposes. And ultimately, when we come under the influence of Maya, or illusion, it leads us to pursue activities not in Krishna consciousness. And it is due to our illusion, our forgetful nature of the eternal reality, which is that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord as spirit soul. So Krishna began speaking in the 27th verse about how one comes under the influence of Maya. Why one comes under the influence of Maya. And Krishna spoke that all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. So this icha and dvesha, this desire and hate, this is what brings one into the influence of this material nature, of the illusory energy. We had a desire, and that desire was to be independent of Krishna. We said, why you? Why not me? And that led to some inimical feelings. When someone has something that we want, we develop an envious mood often towards that individual. And that envy manifests ultimately into some dvesha, hatred. So, and we see that in this material world, it is full of I like this and I don't like that. I want this, my desire, and I hate this. And the interesting thing about the things we see in the material world, that those things that we so badly want, moments later, we are repulsed by them. We don't want them. What that can be the case? So badly we want certain things, and after some time, sometimes so quickly, that same material thing turns into the source of our hate. So this is the nature of the material world. And Srila Prabhupada speaks about how in the material world we see everything in duality. Hot, cold, rich, poor, smart, unintelligent, tall, short. Everything is duality. So then the question becomes, if this is the nature that we are currently in, is there any way out? Is there any way to get beyond this illusion? Because in the spiritual world, everything is absolute. There's no two sides of the equation. This concept that to experience happiness, one must first experience misery is fool's conception. But it is not. It is just like to say, to experience the nice hot weather in the summer, we must experience 10 inches of snow and frigid cold. That's not true. Those living in warm climates around the earth, they experience. So in the spiritual world, everything is absolute. So now Krishna is speaking in the 28th verse. How one overcomes this illusion. If we have fallen into this illusion by this icha and dvesha, this desire and hatred, and it's so pervasive, Krishna says, all living entities are born into delusion. So if we are all born into delusion, how we will ever come out of it? Is it possible to come out of it? Does anybody want to be in delusion? We want to see things as they are. Krishna said, Prabhupada says, the constitutional position of living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord is pure knowledge. Anytime we see anything different than that, it's illusion. And that's what Krishna opened this whole chapter with. Right? So, we'll read now the 28th verse. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion. And they engage themselves in my service with determination. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regular principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat sevam dvandva-moha-nirmukta. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Tamodvaram yoshitam sangi sangam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's laws. Unless one is reinstated in his constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. So again, I'll just read the verse. Krishna says, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So, Krishna is speaking here about how to overcome the dualities of delusion. How to obtain a place, a state of mind where there is no good and bad. There is no ups and downs. There is no unhappiness, happiness. Anybody wants that type of situation? Where it's constant in our desired outcome. There is no duality. So, duality exists throughout the material world. Is there any corner of the universe you can see where there is not duality? Anybody has found it in any aspect of their life? It is the nature of the material world. That is the nature of the material world. It is duality. Right? So, the greatest violation of law. Prabhupada speaks very strongly here. What is the greatest violation of law? Not paying your taxes? Plundering the riches from your neighbor? What is the greatest violation?
Forgetting the constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord.
Forgetting our constitutional position. What does constitutional position mean? That is it, but what does constitutional position mean?
Who am I?
Who am I?
Designated. Designated.
Yeah. That is the designation. It is the definition of who we are. It is the definition. It is an eternal truth. That is spirit, soul. I have a single constitutional position, a designated position. And what is that position? To be the servant of Krishna. But because of my icha, dvesha, I wanted to forget that constitutional position. that fact. So, to experience something that is not fact, I must come into illusion. What is the purpose of illusion? To make something appear that is not factual. That's the definition of illusion. Right? So, the position of being eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, that is a fact. That is an eternal fact. And what happens when we forget that fact?
Get entangled in the materialistic.
We get entangled in the materialistic activities. Why do we get entangled in materialistic activities? When we are forgetful of our constitutional position. Why do we?
Desire.
We have desires. And those desires are manifested in I, me, and mine. I want to do this. I want to do that. Because we are forgetful of our eternal position. So we try to enjoy separate from the Lord. Krishna has been saying in this entire chapter, there is nothing you can experience, either in this world or the next, that is not my energies. Yet we want to try to enjoy separate. And when we try to enjoy separate from the Lord, we are in essence a thief. We are stealing. We are taking something that is not ours and trying to enjoy it ourselves. And so what is the result? When one performs these activities, what happens? We're forced to endure suffering. Who is the cause of this suffering? We are. What was the cause? Our forgetfulness of our position as eternal servant of Krishna. So that is why Prabhupada makes this very strong statement. But it's a fact. It's a fact. So, now how to overcome this illusion? What does Srimad Bhagavatam say if one wants to be liberated? What must one do? Not surrender, but how one comes to the point of surrender. Krishna is saying, they engage themselves in my service. What does my service mean? Bhakti, devotional service. How one comes to devotional service? Association. With whom? With the pure devotee of the Lord. It is association that brings one to Krishna consciousness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it says, actually one must render service to the devotees. So when Krishna says persons who have acted piously in previous lives, how does this pious action lead to devotional service? How does it lead to devotional service? Is piety devotional service? What is piety? Doing good deeds. And what is the result of good deeds? Good karma. And does good karma liberate us? It keeps us here in the material world. Maybe in a better situation, but we're still in the material world. So why is Krishna linking piety with the performance of devotional service? It's not so obvious. Prabhupada is creating the link for us.
Maybe that's the first stage for something related to devotion. I mean, start from something negative, come to piety, and then probably move on to something.
Yeah, Krishna will speak about that in the third part of the Bhagavad Gita, about coming to the mode of goodness, and from the mode of goodness transcending the modes. But it is the pious nature of one that attracts the mercy of these pure devotees. It is when a pure devotee of the Lord sees the pious nature of the soul, they become inspired to share this knowledge and wisdom. And what knowledge they are looking to share? About politics, weather, astrophysics? No. To remind us of our constitutional position. The pure devotee of the Lord has one mission, and that is to remind us of our constitutional position. And why does the pure devotee of the Lord endeavor so much to try to remind us of this constitutional position? So we can go back to Godhead. But why does the pure devotee want us to go back to Godhead? Krishna wants. But why should I care what Krishna wants? Why is the pure devotee going through so much intense endeavor? Compassion. And what are they compassionate for? But we show compassion to what type of person? Who do we show compassion to?
Those who belongs to us, and those are most fallen.
Those who are suffering. The man with great wealth distributes wealth to those who are in need of wealth. Those who are suffering. Who is suffering in this material world? Huh? Everybody. Really? We don't want to believe it, but it's the sad truth. So what is the goal of the pure devotee? To help us remember our constitutional position, so that we can come to end our suffering. Because when one awakens their eternal relationship with Krishna, one experiences the real life, the true perfection of life. One experiences this single-minded happiness and bliss. No more dualities. No more ups and downs. No more rich and poor, healthy, unhealthy, strong, weak. None of that. But one must awaken this relationship with Krishna. So the pure devotee of the Lord, seeing the suffering of humanity, the lost hope of trying to find happiness through more money, more strength, more power, more fame, all these things, tries to bring this knowledge to anyone who is interested in hearing, so that they can remember again where they came from and stop violating these laws of the Lord. But the ultimate purpose is to not end suffering, but to bring to them the greatest opportunity for happiness and peace. Our relationship with the Supreme Lord is what will give us happiness and peace. Everything else is an illusion. Whatever other enjoyment we get, we have practical example. Every single thing that we try to enjoy in this material world, it fades away. It fades away. Every single thing. And many of those things that we are enjoying ultimately become the source of our disenjoyment, unhappiness. The formula is not working. But when we take to Krishna consciousness, one finds the means to find this eternal happiness and bliss. And it comes from remembering our constitutional position, and this position is awakened by the compassion of the pure devotee of the Lord. So, Srila Prabhupada comments, unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we must awaken our position of servant of the Lord. So, and what is the result of coming to devotional service? In this verse, Krishna says two things. When we begin to practice devotional service, what is the result? Two things manifest. Free from dualities. That means that we can become free from these dualities even in this lifetime. We don't have to wait for next lifetime. That the dualities of the material world, to one whose consciousness is transcended through devotional service, is no longer affected by the dualities of the material world. Krishna is saying, become freed from delusion. And what else happens?
Know our constitutional position.
We'll know our constitutional position. By knowing our constitutional position, it leads us to bhakti. There is no other conclusion. If we know the self, then it takes us to the process of devotional service. But what is the second effect? Relieved from all of our sinful actions. In forgetfulness of Krishna, yes, we have performed so many sinful activities. Even taking an apple from the tree, if we do not offer it to the Lord, there is reaction in that. Why? Because it is a living entity. If we do not offer it to the Lord, then we have to take that reaction. Krishna says in the 13th verse of the 3rd chapter, one who eats things that are not offered to me, what does he say? Verily eats sin. Sometimes we think, oh, that's harsh. That's the reality. If you don't pay your taxes, you'll go to jail. Yeah, that may sound harsh, but that's reality. If even taking a simple apple from a tree without offering to the Lord. So how many sinful activities we may have performed in our forgetfulness of our constitutional position? A few? Unlimited. We cannot even put a number on it. But see how compassionate Krishna is. He says, yes, in your ignorance you have made some mistakes. If you come to my devotional service, I will take care of that. He's willing to forgive. Krishna is not like us. We hold grudges. You walked out of my place, you said this, that, and the other, don't come back. When we walked out of Krishna's place and came here, he came with us, hoping someday we'll come back to him. So Krishna is giving us this great opportunity to become free from the impact of the dualities and of our sinful reactions. But we must take to devotional service. And how do we come to devotional service again? By the mercy of the pure devotees. How many of us would have any opportunity to be studying this most important topic of devotional service, our constitutional position, the nature of the soul, how to become free from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, were it not for Srila Prabhupada presenting this Bhagavad Gita to us? What contribution to mankind he has given through unimaginable sacrifices. At the age of 70, he began distributing this most potent knowledge, coming as it is from the Supreme Lord. Why he did that? He was already self-delivered. He himself, his destination, he was going back where he came from. Why he embarked upon such a journey? It was due to extreme compassion, feeling how I can bring this message to anyone who wants to hear, so that they may remember again what they've forgotten and get back on track. And Srila Prabhupada took a step further. Here Krishna is saying that it is the pious nature that attracts the mercy of that devotee. But Srila Prabhupada was casting his glance even on the most impious. Even the most impious, most drugged up, and most abominable living conditions. Not seeing the external filth, but seeing the internal nature of the soul, he would embrace them with his love, care, and compassion. Things we would never do. But Srila Prabhupada did. And because of his great efforts, all over the world, this knowledge is now being made available. All over the world, 70 languages, every continent, except maybe Antarctica. Maybe there's someone there. But they're taking to this process. It is a universal principle. This is the great compassion. But the Srimad Bhagavatam says one must render service to the devotees. So how can we render service to the devotees? To who brought us to this knowledge? How can we render service to Srila Prabhupada?
Distribution.
Why is book distribution rendering service to Srila Prabhupada?
More and more people know about it.
That is his mission. To awaken this knowledge in as many people as possible. So if we take these books that he worked so hard for, while everyone was taking rest, he was the one up at night, very methodically, systematically presenting this knowledge. So we do our small part by distributing these books, sharing this knowledge, giving that to anyone and everyone. Sometimes we think it's cold outside. Srila Prabhupada crossed an ocean on a cargo ship with nothing but dry oats to eat to bring this knowledge. We can't put on a jacket and hat and gloves and go out and distribute a little bit. Srila Prabhupada was rejected time and time again, but it never curbed his enthusiasm. Never curbed his enthusiasm. And that's why Krishna says, what's the last two words of this verse? With determination. Devotional service should be done with determination. Yes, there will be some obstacles in devotional life. Those are Krishna's tests to intensify our surrender and love. So we have to stay determined. And if we study the activities of our past acharyas, we see great enthusiasm and determination. So we must also stay determined and enthusiastically serve. So this is how we can overcome this dualities of delusion. It is again by remembering our constitutional position as eternal loving servant of the Lord, and remembering comes through the mercy of the pure devotees of the Lord. And we can obtain their mercy by rendering service to them. It is the only means, as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the last two verses of this chapter, Krishna is speaking about others who also will surrender. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So this is a type of satkam devotee who has a desire. And what is the desire of this person? To be liberated. A pure devotee has only one desire. What is the desire of the pure devotee? To please Krishna. What will please Krishna? If my burning in hell will please Krishna, no problem. That's the level of purity. So sometimes we see in spirituality, I want liberation. It's okay. But pure devotional service, a higher realm, is to have only desire to please Krishna. And when one has that purity, one obtains transcendental bliss beyond compare, even to the happiness from liberation. In the last verse, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So Krishna has been talking about him, knowledge of the Absolute, from the beginning of this chapter. And now he's speaking about how to know him at the time of death, as he transitions to the next chapter. And what is the title of the next chapter? Chapter 8. Attaining the Supreme. And he's going to tell us that when we remember Krishna at the time of death, one immediately attains his eternal abode. So Arjuna is going to open the next chapter with the question of the 6 terms that Krishna has spoken in 29 and 30. He has spoken about Brahman, he has spoken about the Jiva, Agyatma, and he has spoken about Karma. 3 terms in the 29th verse. And in the 30th verse, he has spoken about Adibhuta, Adidevam, and Adiyagyam. This material manifestation, who is the governing principle of the material manifestation? That is Adibhuta. Then he's asking, who are the devatas, the demigods? He's Adidevam. Who is the governor? Who is the Lord of all of the demigods? And then Arjuna is going to ask, who is the Lord of all the sacrifices? Who is that? That Adiyagyam. So, these 6 terms Krishna has presented in these last 2 verses, and now Arjuna will begin to inquire about in the opening of the 8th chapter. And Krishna will explain these 6 terms in the 8th chapter, as he explains, by knowing this, one can attain the Supreme Lord. So this is the conclusion of the 7th chapter. A little technical, but hopefully clear. That it all begins with awakening our constitutional position. And that happens by the mercy of the Lord. Any questions? Comments? Anything else? Okay. So, engage in the best form of devotional service, which is chanting of the holy names. It's the most potent process in devotional service. By simply chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can awaken this understanding of our position as eternal loving servant of the Lord, overcome these dualities, and obtain transcendental happiness. So, please take to this chanting. It is a very simple yet highly effective process. But it takes some determination to overcome the snooze on the alarm clock, to overcome some temporary bodily difficulties, maybe some stress in our life. But with determination, if we chant, we'll see a great change in our life.